You pick up a scalpel. You pick up a needle. You turn the light on. You take a closer look at your desk. It is of a silver metallic color and supports a small desk lamp. You can see some papers on your desk. You take the papers off of your desk. The papers concern your current cryogenic patient, a Mr. Fred Sweezy. He has been dead for 5 years and his clone has been growing for this time period. It has reached maturity and the transfer of Mr. Sweezy's brain to his clone is to be performed by you today. The brain has been treated with the most current drug therapy and the survival length is expected to be up to 2 years. You are expected in the operating room for this procedure. You reach inside the cabinet and take out a glass bottle. You are standing in the middle of the hall. Your assistant's office is to the north. Further down the hallway is the storage room and the elevator. Susan is sitting at her desk. Her office is full of electronic equipment. A computer console is on her desk and she is typing something on it. The walls of her office are decorated with several colorful paintings. Susan looks up at you and smiles. Quote, "Hello, Mr. Stevens." Unquote, she says to you, in a pleasant voice. Quote, "Oh, I knew one of the victims. It was terrible when I heard she was killed. And the way she was killed and so on. I am still afraid when I go home at night." Unquote. Quote, "You must want to see the current medical charts for Mr. Sweezy." Unquote. She looks through her desk and takes out the records for your patient. Quote, "You wouldn't want to go into the operation without looking at these." Unquote. She says to you. You pick up the charts and read over them. They give you all the current information for the operation. After reading them you give it back to Susan and she puts it in her desk. You are standing in the middle of the hall. Your assistant's office is to the north. Further down the hallway is the storage room and the elevator. You are directly before the building's elevator. To the south is a storage room. The hall is a bit dirty here. On the north wall is a plaque describing the biotic complex. This plaque shows a holographic representation of the biotic complex. The surrounding underground buildings are shown, as well as the above-ground transport tunnels. The name of the biotic's founder and current president, Mr. Jack Richards, is displayed quite prominently on the top. You are in the elevator. It is a bit large. There is a panel directly in front of you with a large hand imprint right in the wall. There are a set of 6 buttons next to this panel. There is some printing above this panel as well. You place your hand into the imprint. After a few seconds an electronic voice gives you verification and access to floors 1, 4. You press button 2. The elevator moves to the second floor. You are standing in the hallway between the elevator and the surgical room. The office of your department manager is also on this floor. You walk into the office of your department manager. He is sitting at his desk looking over some papers. Quote, "Yeah, Johnny boy. What can I do for you?" Unquote, he asks. Your dislike for Mr. Billows grows each time he calls you Johnny boy. His office is about the same size as yours. However, he has a back room with research equipment and his own computer console. Mr. Billows is looking at you with an expression as though he is constipated. Quote, yes, I have heard about those horrible murders. Just women I hear. At least we don't have to worry about being killed. Unquote, he mutters out. Quote, nice girl, very pretty too. If you want to talk to her she is probably in her office. Unquote. Quote, back there I do some more complex experiments than can be done here in my office. They all are really quite boring and would be of no interest to you. Unquote. Quote, he is waiting in the operating room. You better get in there and start the operation. Unquote, he grunts out. You are standing in the hallway between the elevator and the surgical room. The office of your department manager is also on this floor. You are in front of Biotic's surgical room. To the south is the cryogenic storage room. Down the hall to the east is the elevator. You are in the preparation room for surgery. There is a changing room in the back. To your right is a sink. To your left is a display screen in the wall. There is information currently being displayed on it. To the west is the operating room. A set of automatic doors separate the two rooms. You are in the changing room. The electronic door opens and closes behind you. A small metal opening in the wall contains a set of cloths for you to wear. You reach over and pick up the surgical cloths. You take off your old cloths and put on the clean ones. You are in the preparation room for surgery. There is a changing room in the back. To your right is a sink. To your left is a display screen in the wall. There is information currently being displayed on it. To the west is the operating room. A set of automatic doors separate the two rooms. You turn on the water and wash your hands. They are now clean. The screen shows the current conditions of your patient, Fred Sweezy. His head has now reached room temperature and his body is ready for the brain transplant. You are expected in the operating room presently. You are in the operating room. It is spotlessly clean and a perfect quiet. Several machines are in the middle of the room along with several large lights. A large table is set in the middle of the room. There are several assistants standing around it. Your patient is lying on the table. His head is prepared next to him and currently has reached room temperature. The surgical tools are on a small stand next to your patient. Quote, ready for the operation, Mr. Stevens. Unquote, a young nurse asks you. You nervously answer, quote, yes. Unquote. You look around the room and look at the medical devices. They control breathing, vital functions, blood flow, and the heartbeat of the patient. They are all currently working. The stand next to you contains several medical instruments. There is a laser scalpel as well as several needles and other devices. The nurse standing next to you catches your attention. She is dressed in her white uniform. She is slim and very pretty. Her long red hair falls over her shoulders. The name tag on her shirt reads Veronica Lake. You recognize this nurse and think about how she usually works in the restricted floors. For some reason she has been assigned to work with you. Your patient does not look well at all, with his old head in a container, and his body on the table. You decide to start the operation. You perform the operation perfectly. Your patient is fine and is taken to a recovery room. You wash up and change your clothes. As you leave the surgery room, the pretty nurse gives you a smile. You walk out into the hallway. Access to the operating rooms will be denied until a future operation takes place. You are in front of Biotic's surgical room. To the south is the cryogenic storage room. Down the hall to the east is the elevator. You are standing in the hallway between the elevator and the surgical room. The office of your department manager is also on this floor. You are in Mr. Billow's office. He is currently sitting at his desk. In the back of his office is a door which leads to his research room. Surrounding his office is electronic equipment. Quote, I am sorry about your patient. He died shortly after the operation. Next time be more careful. Unquote. You are standing in the hallway between the elevator and the surgical room. The office of your department manager is also on this floor. You are in the elevator. It is a bit large. There is a panel directly in front of you with a large hand imprint right in the wall. There are a set of 6 buttons next to this panel. There is some printing above this panel as well. You place your hand into the imprint. After a few seconds, an electronic voice gives you verification and access to floors 1, 4. You press button 4. The elevator moves to the 4th floor. You are in the company's eating area. There are a number of people sitting around eating and talking. A serving area is to your left. A couple of empty tables is directly in front of you. You can see Veronica sitting alone at a table. You are standing before the serving area. They are serving a mixture of a bland vegetable sauce with a protein drink. It smells quite bad. An old grey-haired lady is serving this meal to her unfortunate victims. Quote, want some, Sonny? Unquote. She asks you in a scratchy voice. You ask the serving lady for some of this fine cuisine. She plops a portion down on your tray. You go to your table and sit down. You carefully lay the tray down on the table as not to spill any of this culinary delight. You sit across from Veronica. She smiles at you and says, quote, hello, unquote. You are in the company's eating area. There are a number of people sitting around eating and talking. A serving area is to your left. You are sitting at a table. Your food is lying there. She is very pretty. Her red hair is quite long and she is wearing a nurse's white uniform. Her name tag is visible and reads Veronica Lake. Her jacket is folded and placed on the back of her chair. You give a tray of food to Veronica. She thanks you kindly and smiles. As she starts to eat it, her gratitude seems to lessen. Her smile is completely gone by the time the food is finished. She starts to get up. She asks you to come by to her apartment for dinner later. You gladly accept. Quote, I live in the underground biotic apartments. Unquote, she tells you. Quote, I have to get back to work now, goodbye. Unquote. She walks off to the elevator. You reach over and take it off of the chair. You look inside the pockets of the jacket. You see something fall onto the floor. It is a card. You look through the rest of the pockets. Inside are several letters. You quickly look them over. They appear to be love letters between Veronica and Mr. Richards. You stick them back into Veronica's jacket. You pick up the security card. You are in the elevator. It is a bit large. There is a panel directly in front of you with a large hand imprint right in the wall. There are a set of 6 buttons next to this panel. There is some printing above this panel as well. You place your hand into the imprint. After a few seconds an electronic voice gives you verification and access to floors 1, 4. You press button 3. The elevator moves to the 3rd floor. You are directly before the building's elevator. To the south is a storage room. The hall is a bit dirty here. On the north wall is a plaque describing the biotic complex. This room contains an assortment of supplies used for cryogenic research. There is a small light overhead illuminating the room. A freezer in the back of the room contains specimens for experimental use. There is a faint smell of decay present. A pile of sheets are here. There is a dead cat lying on the floor. As you take one of the sheets, a nurse from one of the other floors comes in. Quote, "We need some extra sheets on the 5th floor," unquote. She tells you. She grabs the pile and walks out. You cut up the sheet into a set of long strips. You tie each strip together to make a raggedy rope. You open up the freezer door. You reach into the freezer and take out a frozen cat. You are directly before the building's elevator. To the south is a storage room. The hall is a bit dirty here. On the north wall is a plaque describing the biotic complex. You are standing in the middle of the hall. Your assistant's office is to the north. Further down the hallway is the storage room and the elevator. You are in your office. The light is a bit dim in here. Your desk is against the far wall. A table with several large instruments is to your direct left. A large cabinet is next to the table. The walls of your office are covered in wood paneling. A gray carpet covers the floor. You lay the cat down on the platform and connect up the proper devices. You start the instruments and watch as the cat's temperature starts to warm up. After a short while the cat is unfrozen. You put the needle into the bottle and take out the drug. You take your needle and inject the blue fluid into the cat. His heart starts to beat and the cat opens his eyes. He looks peacefully at you and then takes a nap. You are standing in the middle of the hall. Your assistant's office is to the north. Further down the hallway is the storage room and the elevator. You are directly before the building's elevator. To the south is a storage room. The hall is a bit dirty here. On the north wall is a plaque describing the biotic complex. You are in the elevator. It is a bit large. There is a panel directly in front of you with a large hand imprint right in the wall. There are a set of 6 buttons next to this panel. There is some printing above this panel as well. You place your hand into the imprint. After a few seconds an electronic voice gives you verification and access to floors 1, 4. You press button 2. The elevator moves to the 2nd floor. You are standing in the hallway between the elevator and the surgical room. The office of your department manager is also on this floor. You are in Mr. Billow's office. In the back of his office is a door which leads to his research room. Surrounding his office is electronic equipment. Mr. Billows appears to have left his office for some reason. You put the card into the slot. The door to the back room opens. You think you can see something inside the room. You are in the back room of Mr. Billows' office. There is a large table and several machines here. The room is quite a mess. A large cloth bag is laying in the corner of the room. You start to unzip the bag. About halfway down, a pale, dead body hangs out of the bag. To your astonishment, it is the body of your patient, Fred Sweezy. There is evidence of additional surgery visible. His head has been operated on and you can see the stitches where it was cut open. The zipper that opened the bag breaks off from the weight of the dead body. The dead body was your patient, Fred Sweezy. He is cold, stiff and very quiet. There is no hair on his head and stitches can be seen around the forehead. A long incision along the abdomen is also present. You estimate his death was relatively recent. You take your scalpel and are ready to open up the dead body. You decide to open both previous incisions. You first cut open the abdomen. You can see a patchwork of tubing and organ transplants. You surmise this was done as a last resort to stop the patient's internal degeneration. You then cut into the body's forehead. The skull is still loose with a small gap present. Inside you see something of interest. A small, internal brain pump was implanted into this patient. You carefully remove the brain pump from the dead body. A small piece of brain is still attached to the pump as you lift it out. You manage to remove this piece and put it back into the dead man's head. The brain pump is a small device that is designed to deliver a substance directly into the brain at certain intervals. The pump you are examining appears to be a permanent internal pump. There is a small chamber in the device which contains a clear liquid. You think to yourself that it is vital this drug is identified. You are in Mr. Billow's office. In the back of his office is a door which leads to his research room. Surrounding his office is electronic equipment. Mr. Billows appears to have left his office for some reason. A security card is lying here. You pick up the security card. The door closes. You are standing in the hallway between the elevator and the surgical room. The office of your department manager is also on this floor. You are in the elevator. It is a bit large. There is a panel directly in front of you with a large hand imprint right in the wall. There are a set of 6 buttons next to this panel. There is some printing above this panel as well. You place your hand into the imprint. After a few seconds an electronic voice gives you verification and access to floors 1, 4. You press button 3. The elevator moves to the 3rd floor. You are directly before the building's elevator. To the south is a storage room. The hall is a bit dirty here. On the north wall is a plaque describing the biotic complex. You are standing in the middle of the hall. Your assistant's office is to the north. Further down the hallway is the storage room and the elevator. Susan is sitting at her desk. Her office is full of electronic equipment. A computer console is on her desk and she is typing something on it. The walls of her office are decorated with several colorful paintings. Quote, that looks like some type of implantation device for delivering a type of drug. I just received that order of ultra-thin tubules you had ordered a few weeks ago. You could probably connect that device up to your instruments now if you wish. Unquote. Susan hands you the tubules. You are standing in the middle of the hall. Your assistant's office is to the north. Further down the hallway is the storage room and the elevator. You are in your office. The light is a bit dim in here. Your desk is Against the far wall, a table with several large instruments is to your direct left. A large cabinet is next to the table. The walls of your office are covered in wood paneling. A gray carpet covers the floor. There is a specimen on the medical platform. You hook up the tubules to the brain pump. You connect the tubules and brain pump to your machines. The clear liquid is sucked into the thin tubules and travels into the hearing and breathing devices. It is then transferred into the sleeping cat through a small tube. After a few seconds the cat awakes. It turns to you with an unusual look. The cat's mouth opens and its little, sharp teeth bite into your arm. A sharp pain is felt. The cat then jumps off of the platform, disconnecting the tubes to the medical devices. It runs behind the potted plant in your office. A high-pitched shriek comes from the cat as it turns towards you again. It jumps at your chest with its claws extended. You grab the cat by its neck and start to twist. You hear a soft snap as you break its neck. You then drop the cat back down onto the platform. You carefully lower the platform cover and incinerate the remains of the cat. From the reaction of the cat you infer the drug was Holcadil, as you had expected. You are standing in the middle of the hall. Your assistant's office is to the north. Further down the hallway is the storage room and the elevator. As you walk out into the hall you notice several men standing there. They all are wearing masks. One of them grabs you as another hits you over the head. Everything turns black and so on. You awake to the sight of several large ships taking off for other worlds. You must be above ground near the radar base. You overhear one of the men talking, quote, "We will send him off-world and then kill him. Give him the drug now, Charlie." Unquote. You are sitting in the front seat of a transport car. Your hands are loosely tied, while your legs are free. Charlie, a large man dressed completely in black, walks over to you. You manage to free your hands without him noticing, as he takes out a long needle. He quickly injects your arm with a clear liquid. You manage to pull out the needle before most of the drug is completely injected. You struggle with him and grab the man with the needle. After a few seconds he passes out. You start to feel a little dizzy, but you manage to remove Charlie's body from the car. You start to operate the dashboard as the other men see you. You travel to the underground tunnel in an attempt to lose them. You seem to be passing through the tunnel quickly. As your car travels along the rails you view the moon surface, which is tinted slightly yellow from the tunnel walls. Once through the tunnel you will be on the opposite side of the moon and will not be able to see the large planet that seems to take up the entire sky. In the far distance you can see the kidnappers chasing you in another transport car. You are on the platform on the moon's surface. The moon is covered by a partially transparent dome. A reddish glow is being shown through the dome and the landscape has taken on a eerie appearance. Next to the platform is a tunnel leading to the ships leaving this moon. In the far distance you can see the kidnappers chasing you in another transport car. You are sitting inside the transport car. You can see up ahead where other cars are making their way out of this complex. To your far left you can see other cars entering from above. Cars are visible to your far right. A large sign there is directing people to the recreation area. People are walking along a pathway towards it. In the far distance you can see the kidnappers chasing you in another transport car. You are entering the car park. The electronic sign overhead has 2 arrows, leading to the north and 1 to the northeast. It reads, "Passengers leaving for above ground head north." To the northeast is the recreation area. In the far distance you can see the kidnappers chasing you in another transport car. You are traveling briskly through the transport tubes. You can see a dome, with several artificial trees and plants in the far distance. It is probably part of the recreation area near the biotic exit. In the far distance you can see the kidnappers chasing you in another transport car. The car moves along in the transparent tubes. It is surprisingly silent. You can see an underground apartment complex to the north. It is made up of several buildings of similar size and shape. The transport tubes also continue westwards. A booth with an electronic speaker is directly to your right. Many high-ranking executives have apartments here and security is very tight. Permission must be given to enter an apartment. In the far distance you can see the kidnappers chasing you in another transport car. You say the name quote, Veronica Lake, unquote, into the booth speaker. After a few seconds confirmation for entrance is given. In the far distance you can see the kidnappers chasing you in another transport car. You are directly outside the apartment. It is quite high up and is located towards the back of the building. You are sitting in the transport car. Your transport car is connected directly to the walkway to the entrance. You may enter the apartment directly by leaving the car and going through the electric door to your north. You can return to the normal tube route by going south. The lights turn on as soon as you enter. The automatic door opens and then closes as you pass by it. You feel a little dizzy from the drug given to you. You fall down and hit the floor. As you lie there you start to hallucinate. A sea of blood appears before you. In the far distance a strange female figure is visible. You awaken with a pain to the left side of your head. That is where you were hit. You remember where you are and start to rise. You look down at your hands and see blood. Blood is everywhere, on the floor, walls, furniture. You see the murdered remains of Veronica lying on the floor. Her body is decapitated and her severed head is lying behind the couch. Veronica is lying dead on the floor. The dead body was once Veronica Lake. She has brutally murdered. Blood is splattered across the room and Veronica's head has been severed. Her body contains an assortment of bruises and cuts. The head belonged to Veronica. It was cut off in a manner similar to the other recent murders. It is lying behind the couch. You hold your stomach as you approach the dead girl. Carefully you cut around the bone and remove the hand from the arm. You pick up the hand. You are directly outside the apartment. It is quite high up and is located towards the back of the building. Your transport car is connected directly to the walkway to the entrance. You may enter the apartment directly by leaving the car and going through the electric door to your north. You can return to the normal tube route by going south. The car moves along in the transparent tubes. It is surprisingly silent. You can see an underground apartment complex to the north. It is made up of several buildings of similar size and shape. The transport tubes also continue westwards. A booth with an electronic speaker is directly to your right. You sit down inside the electronic car. It has quite comfortable seating and plenty of leg room. An electronic dashboard is directly in front of you. You have access to several destinations within the underground complex. Just follow the transport tubes to reach them. The car will follow along the tubes in the direction you wish unless you want to stop at a certain spot. This is where the public transport cars come to pick up passengers. There is a car waiting here. The tube in which it travels leads off into the far distance. A walkway leads to the elevator. You are in the elevator. It is a bit large. There is a panel directly in front of you with a large hand imprint right in the wall. There are a set of 6 buttons next to this panel. There is some printing above this panel as well. You lift up a severed hand and position it into the imprint panel. After a few seconds, an electronic voice gives you verification and access to all floors. You press button 6. The elevator moves to the 6th floor. You are standing in the office of the president of Bionic. It is lavishly decorated and is very large. A huge desk is in the back of the room. Paintings adorn the walls, while a model of a human skull is held on a platform resting on his desk. This room is hardly, if ever, viewed by anyone besides the president, Mr. Jack Richards. Your files indicate he sees hardly anyone, and if he does, it is in other areas instead of his office. To the back of the room is an open passage. The desk is large and befitting of the president of a large company. There are some loose papers and items visible. You shuffle through the papers on Mr. Richards' desk. You see a folder, labeled quote, restricted information, unquote. You remove its contents. You look over the papers pertaining to Mr. Richards. They are medical files regarding a serious accident that occurred a year ago. It seems Mr. Richards was badly injured in a transport ship crash and required medical attention from Bionic and several surrounding medical units. It does not say how long Mr. Richards was hurt, but it does include information regarding the treatment period still ongoing. You also see a memo and order sheet requesting a number of drugs for Mr. Richards' treatment. Several of the ones listed are currently banned, including a shipment of Holcodil. Information on experimental procedures on live humans is also documented. You pass through the back doorway in Mr. Richards' office. You are standing on a set of old, metal stairs. It is quiet, dark here and you cannot quite see where the stairs lead to. You are standing in what appears to be one of the lower floors in this complex. It looks like it has not been occupied in quite some time. There is debris all over the place and it has a strange smell to it. A narrow corridor is to the south and stairs are to the west. You look down at the debris in the floor. It appears to be made up of mostly dirt and useless garbage. As you are about to turn away, you happen to see a bright object under some of the debris. It looks like a lady's bracelet. You reach down and take the bracelet. You are in a dark corridor. Up ahead is another small room. It is very damp and unpleasant in this passageway. You are in another small, damp room. You notice a discernible stench as soon as you enter it. There is a red stain on the floor beneath your feet. In the right corner is some sort of hatchway. The hatchway is open and an opening leading downwards is visible within. The stench coming from this opening is almost unbearable. You connect the rope to the hatchway door in the wall. You climb down the rope. About halfway down the rope ends and you fall to the ground. You land on your feet and are unhurt. A sense of horror hits you as you look about the room. There are several bodies hanging from hooks before you. They are all headless and appear to be mostly women. The smell of decay and death is overpowering. A couple of the bodies have been here quite a while as their decomposition is evident. The floor is covered with dried blood. An electronic light overhead illuminates this horrid sight. The bodies are hanging from large meat hooks which are dangling down from the ceiling. All of the bodies are decapitated. A single torso is lying on a table. All limbs have been removed. Terror fills your heart as you look about this room. There are several bodies hanging from hooks before you. They are all headless and appear to be mostly women. The smell of decay and death is overpowering. A couple of the bodies have been here quite a while as their decomposition is evident. The floor is covered with dried blood. An electronic light overhead illuminates this horrid sight. You hear a loud sound to your right. The electronic door opens and a man enters the room. You recognize the man from pictures you had seen as that of Jack Richards. However, the man appears much younger for his age than you had expected. His jacket is splattered in blood and he has a wild stare on his face. He seems a bit shocked when he sees you, but he slowly regains his composure and takes a large knife from his jacket. He then starts to walk towards you. The hooks are quite large and are embedded within the hanging bodies. There is one hook to your right that is empty. You reach to your right and grab the meat hook. The connecting wire limits the distance you may go with it. You swing the metal hook at him. As it gains speed you can see a look of surprise in the man's face. It quickly rips through his chest. He bends over with the hook in his body. He looks up one last time, then he dies. You try several times to open the electronic door, but cannot. After a few hours of waiting in this horrid place, several security agents of your department come looking for you. The fact that you did not check in with them led them to believe you were in some sort of trouble. They find you and help you out of this room. The next day you find out all of the details of the case. It seems Jack Richards was the fiend who had been murdering the poor women in the biotic complex. After reviewing the medical records of Mr. Richards, it is discovered he had died in an accident he suffered 2 years before. He was frozen cryogenically and revived shortly thereafter in a cloned body. He used the banned drug Holcodil to keep his body going. The effects the drug had on his mind led him to the grisly murders and crimes. His position of power in the company gave Mr. Richards easy access to the treatment and secrecy he needed to survive. No one except Mr. Billows knew of his accident and later revival. Mr. Billows tried several illegal human experiments on the patients of biotic in the hope of perfecting a permanent Holcodil brain pump for Mr. Richards. All his efforts failed. The body of Mr. Richards was taken to department headquarters. The remains found of the murdered women were also removed. Mr. Billows was found hung from a rope in his office, having committed suicide. The men who kidnapped you were later arrested and sentenced. The murdered Miss Lake was your secret contact. She was also a former lover of Mr. Richards. He had obviously decided to end their relationship. The biotic complex has been permanently closed and has been ordered to relocate if they want to eventually be reinstated. You have been promoted in your department and have succeeded admirably on your assignment. Your final score was 250 out of 250. Game over.